So we want to understand the relationship between price per cup of coffee and quantity demanded of coffee, assuming all other factors stay the same. Now what we do is, suppose we write down different prices of coffee as in dollars per cup. So we write down 1, 2, 3, 4 and $5, and we go to a typical consumer of coffee and we ask this person to tell us how many cups of coffee would this person have in a given period of time, for example a day, at each given price. So this person just has to tell us, based on all other factors, that when the price is $1, how many cups of coffee would he buy? Or the price is $2, how many cups of coffee would he or she buy? And suppose this is what this person tells us. When the price is $1 per cup, this person is likely to buy 10 cups of coffee. If the price is $2 per cup, this person is likely to buy 8 cups of coffee. If the price is $3 per cup, this person is likely to buy 6 cups of coffee. If the price is $4 per cup, this person is likely to buy 4 cups of coffee. And similarly, we get information about what will happen when the price is $5 per cup, and this person will buy 2 cups of coffee. So what we did is, we wrote out different prices, asked a typical consumer of coffee to tell us how many cups of coffee he or she would have at each given price. This table contains information about demand for coffee, and this table is referred to as the demand schedule. So what is the demand schedule? It tells us how many cups of coffee would this person like to have at each given price, Now we have this information about how many cups of coffee would this person demand at each given price. Now let us plot all these information on this one, where we have price per cup of coffee on the vertical axis, measured as in dollars per cup, and on the horizontal axis we have quantity demanded of coffee as in numbers or number of cups. Now, so let us plot these points, and look at the following. When the price is $1 per cup, how many cups of coffee would this person have? 10 cups of coffee. When the price is $2 per cup, how many cups of coffee would this person have? Will be 8 cups of coffee. And in similar way, let us plot other points. For price of $4 per cup, 4 cups of coffee. Price of $5 per cup, 2 cups of coffee. And then what we do is, we've plotted these points and we join them. And what we get is a curve or a line, and this curve contains information about quantity demanded of coffee at each given price. And this curve, since it contains information about demand for coffee, this, for obvious reasons, is called demand curve for coffee. Now, whether you look at the table or this curve, and what you find is the following, and that is, we tend to demand, or quantity demanded of coffee is high when price is low, and quantity demanded of coffee is low, when price per cup of coffee is higher, or I'll simply write high. What we find is there's an inverse relationship. We tend to buy more at a lower price and less at a higher price. The next question that comes to our mind is and in the case of first consumer, we know when the price is $1 per cup, this person would buy 10 cups of coffee. Price is $2 per cup, 8 cups of coffee. And this is the information provided by the first consumer. And like I said, suppose second consumer, just to make life easy for ourselves, is exactly like the first one. When the price is $1 per cup, this person would like to have 10 cups of coffee. When the price is $2 per cup, this person would like to have 8 cups of coffee, and so on. Now, the question we ask is, what is the combined demand for coffee by both consumers taken together? Consumer 1 plus consumer 2. When the price is $1 per cup, the first consumer demands 10 cups of coffee, the second one demands 10 cups of coffee, or both of them together demand 20 cups of coffee. When the price is $2 per cup, the first consumer demands 8 cups of coffee, the second demands 8 cups of coffee, and both of them together demand 16 cups of coffee. In a similar way, we can figure out combined demand for coffee by both consumers taken together. So what we have in the last column is a combined demand of both consumers taken together. And how do we find this out? By simply adding demand for coffee of the two consumers at each given price. Now, we have that information about combined demand for coffee by consumers 1 and 2 taken together. Let us plot these points onto a diagram like this. And what we find is when the price is $1 per cup, both consumers taken together will demand 20 cups of coffee. When the price is $2 per cup, both consumers together will demand 16 cups of coffee, and so on. And so what we have is a combined demand curve for both consumers taken together. How did we arrive at that? We have price per cup of coffee on the vertical axis, quantity demanded of coffee on the horizontal axis, and to determine combined demand curve for consumers 1 and 2 taken together, what we have done is essentially added quantity demanded of coffee at each given price. Or since quantity demanded of coffee is represented on the horizontal axis, excuse me, to derive any kind of combined demand curve, whether it's just for two consumers or for millions of consumers around the world, what we have to do is simply add up quantity demanded of coffee. And since quantity demanded of coffee is on the horizontal axis, this principle is referred to as the principle of horizontal aggregation. And what does aggregation mean? You are just adding up or summing up, and you are doing it over the horizontal axis. So in terms of the example, we created or derived a combined demand curve for two consumers taken together by using the principle of horizontal aggregation. We can use the same principle of horizontal aggregation and figure out a combined demand curve for coffee of millions of consumers. So let us draw a market demand curve for millions of consumers taken together. So what we'll have on the vertical axis is still price per cup of coffee, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, $5. But on the horizontal axis, note the units have changed from number of cups to millions of cups, because we have millions of consumers. So on the horizontal axis, we have quantity demanded of coffee as in millions of cups. And what we have here is the market demand curve. So this is how we move from one consumer to millions of consumers around the world or around the country, and figure out what is the market demand for curve. And what we find is in negative relationship between price and quantity demanded of coffee for millions of consumers, and that is, when the price is higher, people tend to buy less, and when price is lower, people tend to buy more. And if this phenomena applies to millions of consumers around the world, what we will have a law of demand. And what is the law of demand? Now we are in a position to state this formally, and that is ceteris paribus, holding all other variables as constant. What variables are we holding as constant? We are holding price of sugar, price of tea, income, and taste and preferences as constant. So ceteris paribus, holding all other variables constant, there exists a negative relationship, and you know the meaning of negative relationship. That is, price and quantity demanded move in an opposite direction. So law of demand is ceteris paribus, there exists a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded of the same product. Here, the same product has significance. What we are looking at is price of coffee and demand for coffee, price of a car, demand for cars, and so on and so on. Now, look at the subsequent diagrams. A quick recap of where we are. We are trying to understand market, and as a first step, we decided to look at the behavior of buyers, and we define what is demand. And generally speaking, when we talk about demand, what we are looking at are serious consumers. In terms of this lesson, initially we looked at the behavior of one buyer, and we found that this person buys more at a lower price and less at a higher price. After examining the economic behavior of one buyer, we looked at economic behavior of two buyers and tried to derive, or we did derive, the demand curve of both buyers taken together. We extended this to millions of consumers around the world, and we derived what is called a market demand curve. Market demand curve. And the principle we used is the principle of horizontal aggregation. I've just abbreviated this as HA. And we found that there exists a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded of coffee for millions of consumers around the world. And since this relationship applies to millions of consumers, we derived what is the law of demand. In the next lesson or the next video, what we'll do is we'll look at the exceptions to the law of demand. So thank you.